Chancellor, thank you for talking to us. We just actually got GDP numbers for the UK. They look quite punchy, actually, but is that a bit of a tantalising glimpse of how things could have been had it not been for what's happened next?
We've had really good growth numbers for both January and February. January numbers were revised up and growth in February was 0.5%. Those are strong figures, and that reflects the strong fundamentals of the UK economy. And as we went into this conflict, we had inflation and interest rates going down and growth was going up. And that's why I've been really clear with my message this week in Washington, which is that we need to de-escalate this conflict to keep prices, costs and interest rates for families and businesses back home in Britain as low as possible. And I'm very clear about what my job this week in Washington is to do.
Do you think the US administration is kind of conscious or cares about the economic damage that this is causing elsewhere? Because it's damaging the UK, it's damaging Asian economies even more.
I think the US are acutely aware and concerned about the impact on the economy. And
they are. They've told you that.
Well, and I've had productive meetings with US Treasury Secretary where we discussed, for example, how we as finance ministries can bear down and put pressure on Iran, for example, through enhancing sanctions. And my team and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's team are working together today looking what more can be done. So there's some practical things that we can do working together as close allies. But also I've had the opportunity to meet this week with some of my colleagues from the Gulf who are obviously at the sharp end of this crisis, finding that what they export is no longer possible to get to market, certainly not in the quantities that they were previously able to get gas and oil out of their countries. And I expressed to them the solidarity of the British people, but also our ongoing support to defend their economies and to defend their citizens and societies.
Are you frustrated or angry, given how much work you've been trying to do to get growth going in the UK, and now you're seeing it potentially ruined?
Well, look, I am confident about the fundamentals of the UK economy, with prices were coming down, interest rates were coming down, and the economy was growing.
But not
and
anymore,
that is why I am so focused on de-escalation, because the best economic policy right now is to reopen the Strait of Hormuz with free navigation, no tolls for vessels passing through, to bring that oil and gas to international markets, not just to the UK, because we get very little of our oil and gas from the Middle East, but to help reduce prices and get that oil and gas flowing again. And so the diplomatic efforts from our government and from governments around the world, and the work we can do as finance ministries, and of course just yesterday myself and 10 other finance ministers put our names to a statement urging for de-escalation to help all of our economies.
The head of the IEA, the International Energy Agency, says that Europe only has 6 weeks potentially left of kerosene, so jet fuel left. How much do we have left in the UK?
Well, there are no problems with supply at the moment, and
but
airlines
how
have
much
been
of a
clear
stockpile do we have?
About that. There are limits to how much you can keep in one country, but we are confident about our supply. But, of course, as a government, you would rightly expect for us to be preparing for a whole range of scenarios. But it also goes back to this point.
So you are preparing for a whole range of scenarios?
Well, I think people would rightly expect, as with COVID,
what kind of
as with an
are we
energy
talking about
price
here,
shock. But look, we are less exposed than we were a few years ago because our reliance on gas and oil is less than it was a few years ago.
What kind of scenarios are we talking about?
Look, we are preparing for a whole range of scenarios for different durations of this conflict. But at the same time, we are putting maximum pressure on to de-escalate this conflict.
Why did the UK have such low levels of stockpiles going into this? We had, basically the bare minimum of 90-day stockpiles when it came to diesel, when it came to kerosene. Other countries have far more. We started this from a position of vulnerability, didn't we?
Well, as you will remember, the previous Conservative government got rid of our gas storage facilities.
But I'm not talking about gas storage, I'm talking about kerosene, I'm talking about diesel, and we have just, basically the bare minimum of storage, of stockpiles?
Well, we had stockpiles that were historically normal for the UK.
But
and
low
also,
by international comparisons. Like Japan, for instance, has kind of, years worth of stockpiles.
let me also say that we also have a diverse supply base for our oil and gas and kerosene as well. Our dependence on the Middle East is very low, much lower than other countries around the world, with more of our oil and gas coming from other sources. But of course, like other countries, we are exposed to a global price shock, which is what has happened. But it's also why we must double down on the electrification of UK industries and households, so we get ourselves off this roller coaster of oil and gas global markets. But at the same time, myself and the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, are working intensely with industry on the technical details of the tiebacks that we announced at the budget last year, which enables oil and gas companies to exploit their facilities' existing infrastructure to get more oil and gas out of the ground. And that is the quickest way that we in the UK can ramp up our oil and gas production.
Knowing as I do how focused you are on this, does it feel really like the right time at the moment, with the world short of oil, for the UK to be basically banning new licenses on North Sea oil drilling?
Well, we made a commitment in our manifesto just under 2 years ago that we would honour existing licences for oil and gas.
But I'm talking about for new commitments.
The previous government made mistakes in how they awarded licences, and the UK government was taken to court. We lost that case, and so the companies are having to reapply for licences at Jackdaw and at Rosebank. Those applications are live at the moment. The Energy Secretary will make a decision in the next couple of months on those.
Are you hopeful about that?
But at the same time, look, that's a quasi-judicial decision, and so it's important that government ministers don't comment on it. But we made a commitment in our manifesto to honour existing licences. At the same time, myself and Ed Miliband are working closely together with industry on the technical details to implement the announcement we made at the end of last year to allow oil and gas companies to use their existing infrastructure to exploit oil and gas reserves.
Okay, so you'd like to see more oil and gas coming out of the North Sea?
Well, that is why we are making these changes around tiebacks to allow exactly that.
Okay, just final thing. Donald Trump has kind of insinuated that maybe that trade deal that we signed with America might now be in doubt. How much cause for concern do you have about that?
Well, we signed an important trade deal with the US, and we've built on that in recent months, including on pharmaceuticals, which are zero tariffed, and that is a preferential rate compared to other countries around the world. And we secured that by committing to pay more for pharmaceuticals. So I think it's a good deal, both for the UK and the US, and that is how trade deals work. Both parties give something and get something in return. I think it's a fair and balanced trade deal, and there is fair and balanced trade between the US and the UK. But we're looking to do trade deals with countries around the world. Last year we secured deals not just with the US, but also India, the Republic of Korea, and crucially those improvements in trade relations with our nearest neighbours and trading partners in the EU.
Okay, Chancellor, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.